Okay, I am now joined by Seth Dowdle of Bleav in TCU and TCU on SI. We're going to talk about the Horned Frogs. Can they pull the upset on Duke? Seth, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to this conversation. TCU basketball is usually not something that is in the limelight at this time of year, at least historically. So it's fun to be talking about the men at least in March. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, but see, this show covers the Pitt men's basketball team as one of its teams. So we know the power of Jamie Dixon and what he can do to a program. What is this, three NCAA tournament wins for him down in Fort
Yeah,
Worth now?
3 in 5 appearances.
Yeah.
So which is just for some schools that's not a lot, and that's obviously for we're going to be talking about their game with Duke today. And if Duke were to do that in a 10-year span, that's a fireable offense for whoever the head coach is. But at TCU, where basketball success does not run at all historically, before Jamie Dixon got there, you had to look back to when he was a player to find any sort of success, and that was back in the 80s. And so, what he's been able to do at a program that really doesn't invest in basketball all that much, this is a football and a baseball school. Um, it's just been really fun to see. But yeah, his powers at Pitt are well established here in Fort Worth now.
Yeah, I mean, TCU would have been happy to be a top half in the country team back in the Mountain West days. And
Yeah.
now I think we're probably at a point that if he can pull this off and make a Sweet 16, he probably just gets to name his own retirement date, whether it's 3 years in the future or 20.
Yeah, which is kind of a nuts thing to talk about because past like couple years there has been calls for his head here multiple times from several different um just people online, just talk because listen, TCU has at least, from what a lot of people understood, had hit their ceiling, 500 in conference play, second round exit in the NCAA tournament was kind of what it was looking like his ceiling was because he had assembled a roster that seemed to be good enough to at least make a second weekend, and it just wouldn't. That's like the Mike Miles, the Damian Baws, the Emmanuel Millers from the 2021 to 2023 era of TCU, and they just didn't make a second weekend. They had two shots at it and they couldn't do it. But then this team rolls around, and I, the best way this team is greater than the sum of its parts in a lot of ways. You would not look at this roster at the beginning of the year and think that this could be one that could. You wouldn't have thought that this would have been the team that would have put the best conference record the team has ever had in like 30 years, the best most wins in a Big 12 season since the team joined the conference back in 2012. In a lot of ways, this team is historic, and it would only be fitting that this is the one that would finally make it to that second weekend for the first time in program history with a cast of characters that seemed pretty unlikely at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, and one of those key characters, a guy that I hadn't realized was still in college basketball. I remember seeing him briefly he was at Iowa, right? Brock Harding.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
it seems like all the Iowa guys, just as a quick aside, everyone hyped up those dudes who went to Creighton last year
Hmm.
as, oh my God, this is like gonna elevate their program, even though they were the stars of a crappy team the year before. And it turns out all the role guys on that team were actually the awesome players. So yeah, Brock Harding takes that shot in the face late in the game yesterday to
Hmm.
Ohio State, ends up coming back in. Really just the engine for this team, it seems like, even though he's sixth in scoring.
Yeah, he's kind of the best way I can describe him is like everyone orbits around him. He's not going to go and score, but he's going to be the guy that gives them the ball and then they're going to score. Like without him, the offense doesn't run as smoothly. Obviously, it can, but he's kind of the engine of it, and then everyone else is able to play off him super well. He's super careful with the basketball. He doesn't turn it over a ton, and he's just super smart. And you can tell by the way he plays that he has college basketball experience. This is a team that doesn't have a lot of tournament experience, um, but it does have that kind of seniority in terms of Brock Harding is a guy who's been around, been there, done that, played in the Big Ten for a long time at Iowa, right? Um, and you kind of saw that yesterday in the game against Ohio State, where it was kind of getting nitty gritty there toward the end. TCU was up by 15. They blow it. They're losing by 5 late in that game. And he's kind of a guy who can just calm the ship with his presence. Maybe he doesn't hit a shot, but he's able to make the big time pass when they need it. And I think that his addition was one that kind of was underrated at the time, and I think still is because, as you mentioned, he's sixth in scoring. You just look at the box scores, and you're like, he's not kind of a guy that's gonna make the biggest impact because there are players on this team like David Punch and Xavier Edmonds and Micah Robinson. Uh, those are the guys that are going to put the ball in the bucket. Brock Harding, though, he's the one who's going to give it to him, and so I think that that's very important and very underrated.
Yeah, and it really does seem like this team actually revolves around its defense. And I had heard,
Hmm.
I forget what I was listening to the other day, but someone's NCAA tournament preview going on about how they're going to throw out four great defenders on Ohio State and just hope that Brock Harding doesn't kill them on that side. But
Yeah.
it's an interesting defensive profile. Clearly one of the top 25 units on that end in the country. They're basically dead average in terms of opponent shooting
Hmm.
efficiency, but they never give up threes. Bottom 15 in the country, and or sorry, they give up a ton. Sorry, they never let opponents assist shots. They're
Yeah.
bottom 15 in the country in that. They force a ton of turnovers, and they don't let teams get to the line. So is this? I mean, what do you give to the strength of this defense? Is it one of those specific principles? Is it a couple of these individual guys who have really been hyped up?
I think it's all the individual efforts kind of like combining into one supernova of awesomeness is kind of like the way I would describe it. And it all kind of builds off of last year. I like to talk about this team in the macro sense because I think a lot of it is in just a last season for TCU basketball was a disappointment. They brought in a lot of transfers that kind of just all got hurt. And so what ended up happening was these young guys had like David Punch and Micah Robinson got a lot more run than they probably were expected to at the beginning of the season. And then they gained that experience. Even though they were losing basketball games, they didn't make the tournament. It was a disappointing season, hence the calls for Jamie Dixon's head at the end of the year. Uh, but that is what kind of has enabled them to run into this year with that experience of, hey, we can do this. And I think you see that most on the defensive end. They are super cool, calm, and collected on that side of the ball. And let me tell you, Duke is going to have to be ready for a fist fight because this is going to be a game where they're going to TCU is going to try and maul them, going to try and make everything difficult. You saw that in the first half against Ohio State, where, I mean, Bruce Thornton was getting nothing. And John Mobley was getting nothing either. Obviously, he kind of broke out in the second half for a little bit whenever he was able to get some openings for shots. But TCU is going to make Duke feel that pressure. And one thing that they have over Siena, which they have a lot over Siena, obviously, but is that they have just that little bit more depth. They're not going to play the same guys for 40 minutes. They can bring guys off the bench like uh, a Xavier Edmonds or a Micah Robinson and stuff like that that are going to be able to bring in the fresh legs and bring in that energy as well.
Yeah, and you've kind of seen back-to-back games now between Siena and then even go back to the ACC title game against Virginia. Teams have been able to really lay a physical hit on Duke and on Cam Boozer especially. Without them having Gungba and Foster, they lose so
Hmm.
much of a physical edge without those two, and it's been a lot easier to wear them down only playing the five starters in Hamania. So that could be a real serious concern. Although the way Shire talked, I wouldn't be surprised if Gungba plays in this game. I would assume he'll probably be somewhat limited, but yeah, I mean Duke with this shorter bench and with Boozer coming off a couple of rough offensive games with teams that have been able to hit him hard, that could be a real serious turning point.
Absolutely, right? Like obviously, I haven't watched the most of Duke basketball this year. I'm not the I stay in my lane in the Central Time Zone when it comes to college basketball. And now that the Big 12 has expanded to all these like I have to watch games in Utah now late at night, which is just really annoying because I used to be able to go to bed at like 8:30 p.m. on college basketball nights because we were just playing up in the plains in Iowa. But that's neither here nor there. Thank you, Brett Yormark, for saving the conference, I guess. But
Well, by the way, I gotta watch games in Berkeley, and I'm in the Eastern time zone,
that's
so
fair. That's fair. That's fair. Conference realignment has ruined. I think sleep schedules have been the thing that has been ruined the most. out of
Did
all this.
I watched an 11 p.m. Cal NIT game the other night. Also, this is March though, and may or may not have double TV'd NIT games until 1 in the morning that day. But
Hey, that's that that's
such
that's
is tis
dedication
the
right there.
season. Tis the
I'm not e-
season.
I'm not even doing that.
When you're covering teams playing in stupid games and there's nothing else on, you find a way.
You find a way. But yeah, back to like talking about the matchup between Duke and TCU and what maybe Duke can expect. I think I mentioned that fist fight, that mauling mentality that Jamie Dixon's team is going to have to do. Expect a lot of traps from TCU in this game. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some full court pressure from the Frogs a little bit as well. I'm interested to see how Duke handles that and how the Boozer Bros are able to handle that as well. Listen, I think Duke's going to win the basketball game. I don't think that TCU is going to win, but I would not be surprised if this game, with like 5 minutes to go, is in the single digits in terms of the deficit for the Frogs, or even if maybe TCU holds a slim lead. I would not be surprised at that at all. I think that the Frogs have shown that they can compete with these top teams. I mean, they're going to be the only team in the country that will have played all four one seeds this season. They played Florida, they beat them. They played Michigan down to the wire back in November, and then they lost to Arizona. And so they are battle tested against some of these top teams. And so I hope, for TCU's sake, that comes out and results in a win, or at least just a good effort. Because when I say that this is the biggest game in TCU men's basketball history, I am not over exaggerating. I think that, for Duke, this is just a second round game en route to hopefully yet another second weekend. But for TCU in this program, I cannot understate what this means or what it would mean to beat the Blue Devils here. Uh, it would be the most surprising and yet the most unsurprising result I've ever seen. I don't know if that makes any sense because this is a team that has shocked me every single game so far this year. I don't know what I'm going to get. And so I would not be surprised if they go out there and shock the world again.
So, just a couple things off that, just two fun stats here. They also played Houston, so they faced the top five in Ken Palm this year, and you could toss in number seven Iowa State as well. No one's going to question that this has been a soft Horned Frog schedule, but they've never won two games in an NCAA tournament.
Nope.
They last played in the Sweet 16 in 1968 when that was the round where they played their first game. Uh, Although fun enough, two future Big 12 rivals, they beat Kansas State in the Sweet 16, lost to Houston in the Elite Eight. Um, this does kind of feel like the Final Four hump for Dixon at Pitt, where he
Yeah.
just couldn't ever get over that threshold that would have made him maybe the greatest coach in Pitt history. And at TCU, he just can't get through this second round kind of barrier now. They're 0-2 at this point. I would assume you certainly know the history better than I do that if he makes a Sweet 16 before he leaves, he probably becomes the greatest coach in school history if he's not already. But
He probably already is the greatest coach in school history. I mean, it's a low bar. It really is. I think he has the most wins in TCU men's basketball history. Don't quote me on that. I'm fairly positive that's the fact that's the case. Uh, Listen, they've kind of been their two second round matchups have been difficult in Dixon's tenure. They played Arizona in 22 and they took them to overtime.
I
I don't know if
genuinely thought they won that game thinking back a couple years ago.
it was. I mean, it was. Hey, if you ask a TCU fan, they'll tell you that that the refs screwed them over. But uh, lost that game in overtime, and then played Gonzaga the next year and lost in the second round there. So that's two tough opponents, right? Obviously, Arizona's a perennial contender, and Gonzaga's also really, really good. And they played them both. Awesome backdoor cover, by the way, in the Gonzaga game. Half court heave to backdoor cover the spread. TCU Gonzaga in that game. Uh, I thank Damian Bach for that every single day of my life. But um, you're right. If he were to do this, I mean, you put I don't want to say build a statue, but you think about it at least. Like this is one of I know that sounds crazy to you know, a fan of a school that college basketball is like the thing there, but at TCU it just really isn't. And so it would be a fantastic accomplishment for sure. Because listen, he does not get a lot of investment from the athletic department. Um, there's no way that TCU is in the top half of this in basketball spending in the Big 12. And so just to be able to do that with this roster, with how much, resources he has, would just be phenomenal.
So just kind of pulling it back into the game because we went kind of big picture a lot here, which
Yeah.
I enjoy. It's kind of fun to look at the perspectives here, and I mean, Duke, this would be a crushing loss to get knocked out round two with with a potential number one pick on the roster. Although I will note, everyone seems to be down on them now because of that Siena game. It's so clear from the press conferences they didn't care and they thought they were just going to
Yeah.
walk out of bed and beat them by 30. I think now hearing the whoa, could TCU catch them? Like
Yeah.
Duke is going to put out their best game in this one, but this TCU offense that is just basically average by every key statistical category in Big 12 play, save for the fact that they were pretty bad shooting the ball.
Yeah.
What is the pathway to them getting to I would assume they need at least 75 to win this game. So up against what might be the best defense in the country when healthy, probably lower end top 5, top 10 in its current state. What is going to happen for TCU to get into the mid 70s and have a real chance to win?
They have to do two things. They have to make at least 8 3-pointers. I know that seems like a really specific number, but they have to make at least eight. And they have to get the ball as close to the bucket as possible because sometimes they miss those bunnies. Uh, I That might sound like really archaic analysis, but let me tell you, it's really no in between for TCU. They need to score points in the paint, and when I say in the paint, I mean like right there. They need to be like right there. And you saw that in the game winner against Ohio State. Xavier Edmonds, like perfect, perfect play, just executed to perfection. And they also need to hit threes, and that's not really a thing that they like to do. They're not really great at it. Um, I think they hit nine against Ohio State, and that's kind of even shocking. That took like a Herculean effort from them because this is not a team of shooters. They like Micah Robinson is probably the best shooter on the team, and like that's not really something that he's like great at. So they're gonna have to light it up from beyond the arc and also find a way to win on the interior, which is going to be tough against a Duke defense that is probably one of the better. I mean, this is probably the best team that they've seen all season. So it's one of those things where it's like, wait, what's TCU going to need to do to win this game? It's like, I don't know, play the best game of their lives.
So the final question here, just to kind of put a bow on all of it, because Duke's worst performances this year, the two losses and then that Siena game, they have been manipulated down low. JT Toppin, Caleb Wilson, Francis Full Effect. Congratulations to the freshman Siena big man for fully deserving to have his name in the conversation with those two in terms of where Duke has been weak this year. And especially if Gungba is out or limited, there is a door open to be able to just kind of try to hit Cam Boozer and Malik Brown down low, see if you can overpower them. Does TCU have the guy to do that?
It's David Punch. It's David Punch down low. He's gonna be that guy. If he can stay out of foul trouble and pretty much play the entire game like that, he's gonna be the guy. Watch for his drop step uh, down on the block. It is his footwork is fantastic. He was able to get Ohio State on that multiple times the other day. He is out of anyone I've ever seen. He's not like the tallest guy in the world. Obviously, he's tall, but Ohio State had several inches on him. I mean, Tilly is like 7 feet tall, and this TCU team runs pretty small. He's able to utilize his athleticism down low, unlike any other I've seen, especially against guys that are significantly bigger than him. And it's just super, super duper impressive. He's great at getting to the line as well. So watch out for him down low. He's going to be the guy that's kind of bruise his way down low and will TCU to win, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, and for anyone who wasn't paying attention to the names, he was the one who threw that nifty little pass
Yeah,
on the game winner against
big to
Ohio
big
State.
passing.
Yeah, that nice little pocket pass to Edmonds. But Seth Dowdle, if the people want to hear more about TCU going into this game, or even if they want to hear about the Horned Frogs in the future, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Seth Dowdle, just my name. That's my username there. You can also find my work over at TCU on SI. Write about the Horned Frogs, baseball, basketball, football, all of the above. And you also listen to my show Bleav in TCU. Me and my friend Zion Trammell, we post about the Frogs weekly, and we talked about the Ohio State game yesterday. So if you want to listen to our thoughts about the Frogs win there, you can hear that, as well as talk about the women's tournament as well. The big tournament for the TCU women seeking to one up their Elite Eight run last season. So we'll be talking about that as well. Go Olivia Miles.
Oh my God, I keep forgetting she's there. But Seth, thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a great time.
Yeah, and thank you to Connor Muldowney as well. Thank you to all of you for listening. We will be back. Maybe you're listening to this and it's Saturday morning already, but we'll be back Saturday morning recapping those Friday games. And then, of course, more previews to come after that.